speaking of not too shabby, hopefully the picks that we're going to pop out right now fall under that criteria or that category. And we do have the favorite pick that will pop out here at the end of the segment, aka the best bet. We're going to start with a guy that I love. Played him a lot last year whenever he was available, and it went relatively well. Josh Downs, over 45.5 receiving yards. This is a very, very doable number. Dolphins defense, they're a mess. They ranked top 5 as a funnel, top 5 pass funnel last year. Their secondary is in shambles. Obviously, no more Xavier Howard, long gone. Jalen Ramsey, long gone. They're starting a day 3 rookie in Jason Marshall at slot corner. So looking good for Downs inside. He averaged 15.5 fantasy points per game, which is wide receiver 17, which is good. Without Anthony Richardson last year. Just anybody but AR were good. The Giants under Daniel Jones actually ranked top 10 in catchable targets last year, while AR, he was dead last. So I'm feeling good here about the schematic matchup. Everything, literally everything. So Josh Downs over 45.5. Jonathan Taylor in that very same game over 78.5. I've always been a Jonathan Taylor stan, one of my favorite backs of all time, quite frankly. I called him a Hall of Famer before he played a snap in the NFL. People were like, yeah, simmer down now. But we're certainly not there, but viable. You know, he's got to put together probably 5-6 more really, really good years. But love JT. And he's looking good with no AR. Colts are 1.5-point favorites. In 2024, Taylor averaged 124 rushing yards a game in wins. Over the last 2 years, 72% more fantasy points, higher fantasy points per snap while leading. And the Colts, we have an online matchup metric tool on fantasypoints.com, 7th best rushing grade for the week. They generated the 5th most adjusted yards before contact per attempt last year. Moving on, James Conner. I remember losing one of these last year, and I'm still upset about it, but the Cards are 6.5-point favorites. Similar to Taylor, over the last 2 years, Conner has averaged 92.4 rushing yards per game in wins. It's a 40% boost. Saints allowed the 4th most schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing running backs last year. Teams are always grinding out the clock, and the Cardinals have a great rushing grade in our O-line matchup tool. They generated the 3rd most adjusted yards before contact per attempt. So they face a Saint defense that allowed the 5th most. So if James Conner doesn't go off, that means the backup Trey Benson goes for $120 most likely, because they're going to run the ball. Arizona low key has very good running game. Brian Thomas Jr. is next up here on the list, over 76.5. Last year, Carolina ran the 4th most single high coverage. That's what you want. You love it. When not pressured against the single high looks, Trevor Lawrence pushed the ball down the field, 4th highest ADOT, believe it or not, at 9.9. And Brian Thomas Jr. had a very healthy 25.6 target share and 2.88 yards per route run against single high. Very, very good numbers. 76.5 was 71.5. We were talking about this earlier in the week. I'll still go over, though. Jonnu Smith, as I mentioned with Nick Bakay, I did a couple late drafts over at the FFPC. Shout out to them. They're great. Love them. And I really wanted to get Jonnu, but I got a little greedy because he really fell in drafts. But when you really look at the state of the receiving core, I like Roman Wilson as a prospect. I've interviewed him and Calvin Austin. Great dudes, fly like the wind, but this is not the week to try him out. In fact, this is not the week to think great things about DK Metcalf. He'll get the ball, but the Dolphins, the Steelers, sorry, I'm all screwed up here with all these teams. These guys switching all these teams here. Jonnu, where the hell's Jonnu playing now? But the Steelers, they allow pressure, and the Dolphins actually can get it. So Aaron Rodgers is going to get rid of the ball, and at the end of the day, Jonnu Smith played for Artie Smith, and Jonnu Smith is pretty much going to be their second receiver. And so if I'm correct there, 26.5 should be an easy peasy one. Ken Walker over 62.5. 49ers defense allowed 5.39 yards per carry to opposing outside zone concepts. That was the second most in the league. 36% more than any other concept. And that bodes well because that is Clint Kubiak's deal, and Ken Walker a good fit. So it should be a close game. It's in Seattle, over 62.5. CJ Stroud, 10-plus rushing yards in 10 of 14 games, 12 of 16, his last 16, including the playoffs. So given the state of the receiving core, a little suspect here, he'll take off and run. I like that one over 9.5. Drake May, Michael Cohen's guy. Could he be a lowercase Josh Allen starting now? I think we're leaning that way, and we'll get some designed runs as well. We are projecting 37 yards, by the way, which is 37% more. Then we'll go Tank Bigsby over 44.5 rushing yards. Last season, Liam Cohen's running backs collectively averaged 30 points a game. That was the second most valuable backfield in fantasy, and it's a great matchup. Now, I know ETN's involved, but Bigsby's got to get 10 carries here. Over 44.5 rushing yards. Carolina defense ranked as the single softest schedule-adjusted matchup for opposing running backs on the ground last year. So those are the 9 of the 10. Let's go to the best one. My best bet for week 1, believe it or not, it's a 40-year-old man. He's a man. He's 40. He's Joe Flacco, over 244 passing yards. Bengals have the highest implied total. Should be a shootout. Their defense allowed the 5th most schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, 2nd most schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends. His boy Njoku should look good. Flacco threw for 250-plus in 13 of 16 starts since 2022, and the Bengals gave up the 4th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Flacco looking good. You're looking good as well. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on mañana or on Monday.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.